In the end, healing yourself is not just about moving on, it's about moving up. Up into self-respect, up into clarity, up into the life you deserve. You stop waiting for them to be sorry, and you start building a reality that doesn't depend on their remorse. And that, right there, is the ultimate freedom. You stop trying to prove your worth and start rediscovering it through journaling, therapy, meditation, creativity, and surrounding yourself with people who actually respect your space, your voice, your growth. And here's the truth most people resist. Healing is not linear. You will have days when you feel strong and days when the pain sneaks back in like smoke through a window crack. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. On those days, remind yourself, I am allowed to revisit the pain, but I will not reinvite the person who caused it. As you heal, something extraordinary happens. The need for their apology fades. You realize their acknowledgement was never the key to your peace. It was just the illusion of closure. Your peace comes from rebuilding a version of yourself that doesn't carry their damage as part of your identity. You no longer ask, why did they hurt me? Instead, you declare, they did, and I'm healing anyway. You begin to live in pause mode, replaying the memory, rehearsing the conversation, reliving the betrayal over and over again. Healing yourself means making the courageous decision to walk out of that waiting room. It means saying, they may never make it right, but I refuse to let that stop me from becoming whole. That's where your power is. You start by validating your own experience. You stop gaslighting yourself into believing it wasn't that bad, or that maybe it was my fault. You accept the full weight of what happened without distortion and without denial. Because only when you name the wound honestly can you treat it properly. From there, healing requires nurturing. You give yourself what you were begging them to provide: compassion, safety, consistency, love. You become the protector and nurturer your younger self needed. You set boundaries not to punish others, but to honor your own emotional capacity. When someone deeply hurts you, especially someone you trusted, it's natural to crave repair from them. You want them to acknowledge what they did, to apologize, to change, to show you that the pain they caused wasn't in vain. You wait, sometimes for months, sometimes for years, hoping they'll come back and undo the damage. But what many people never realize is this: the person who broke you is rarely the one equipped to heal you. Healing begins not when they take responsibility, but when you do. When you stop waiting for a rescue and start becoming your own remedy. Hoping they'll fix it keeps you tethered to the past. It places your healing in their hands, hands that may be unwilling, incapable, or even unaware of the harm they caused. Some people move on from the pain they created without a second thought, while you're still sitting in the rubble, waiting for them to come back with tools. But if you stay in that waiting room too long, it turns into a prison. This mindset creates emotional freedom. You no longer feel the need to over-explain yourself or defend your value. You stop being reactive and start being discerning. You respond with clarity, not desperation. And most importantly, you give yourself permission to walk away, not with resentment, but with self-respect. In the end, one of the greatest acts of emotional maturity is learning to say, that wasn't about me. I was just standing in the blast zone of someone else's inner war. And from that place of truth, you can rise, rebuild, and reclaim your energy without apology. This perspective shift doesn't happen overnight. It requires conscious effort to detach your identity from other people's dysfunction. It helps to ask, would a healthy person have treated me that way? If the answer is no, then you know their behavior came from their own chaos, not your shortcomings. You can feel the pain of their actions without accepting the blame for them. Learning not to personalize also strengthens your boundaries, because once you realize their choices are not reflections of your worth, you stop trying to earn better treatment from people who aren't capable of giving it. You stop shrinking to keep peace. You stop chasing closure from emotionally unavailable people. Instead, you start saying, I see who you are, and I choose to protect who I am, not their character. We question ourselves endlessly, dissecting our words and actions, trying to locate the exact moment we supposedly failed. But this mental spiral leads nowhere. Because more often than not, their behavior is about their own story, their trauma, their insecurity, their emotional immaturity, not your worth. When someone lies to you, it's usually because they fear the truth more than they value trust. When someone ghosts you, it's often because they lack the courage to communicate discomfort. When someone lashes out, it's usually because they've never learned to manage their own emotions without projecting them onto others. That doesn't make their behavior okay. It just makes it understandable. And when you understand it's about them, you stop absorbing it as a definition of you. One of the most emotionally liberating truths you can ever internalize is this: not everything someone does to you is about you. People hurt others because of their own pain, confusion, fears, limitations, and unhealed wounds. But when you personalize their behavior, when you start thinking, I wasn't good enough, I must have deserved that, maybe if I had done something different, you take on a burden that was never yours to carry. You begin to confuse their brokenness with your value. And in that confusion, you abandon your self-worth to solve a puzzle you didn't create. This is one of the most dangerous traps we fall into when someone wounds us, especially if the person was close, a parent, a lover, a trusted friend, someone whose opinion we held sacred. When they betray or belittle us, it feels deeply personal. We assume it's a reflection of our flaw. You thought you were on the same page, and suddenly they ghosted you, betrayed you, or dismissed your worth. The craving for closure is natural, but too often it leads to reopening wounds just to chase validation. You reread texts. You rehearse speeches you'll never give. You stalk their online life trying to decode subtext. And all the while, your present is being stolen by a past that refuses to give you the resolution you think you need. Choosing clarity over closure requires a spiritual shift. It's the moment you say, I don't need them to give me peace. I will create it myself. That clarity becomes your compass. It helps you decide who is safe, what patterns to avoid, and how to speak up earlier next time. Clarity also makes forgiveness easier, but because you understand it had more to do with their limits than your worth. What signs did I ignore because I wanted the connection more than I wanted honesty? Those answers are often uncomfortable, but they're pure gold, because once you see clearly, you no longer need the fog of false hope. You can make decisions rooted in reality, not fantasy. Letting go of closure also means accepting that not all stories get a final chapter. Sometimes the door is slammed and you never found out why. Sometimes people leave mid-sentence or change their character halfway through your story. You can't rewrite their choices. but you can rewrite how you carry the pain. You shift from "I need them to explain why" to "I understand enough to move forward." That's when your peace begins to grow. This is especially difficult when the hurt came from someone you love deeply, family, friends, partners. One of the hardest truths to accept when someone hurts you is that closure may never come. The apology you're waiting for might never arrive. The explanation you think you deserve may remain forever locked behind silence or lies. And yet we cling to the hope that if we can just understand why it happened or make them see how they hurt us, then the pain will loosen its grip. But waiting for closure is like waiting for someone else to finish your healing. It gives away your power. The real breakthrough comes when you stop chasing closure and start choosing clarity. Clarity doesn't require their participation. It only requires your willingness to face the truth. Not their truth, yours. Clarity asks, what do I now know about this person that I didn't want to admit before? What did I learn about myself? My patterns, my expectations, my emotional blind spots, my mind's. Finally, silence creates space for self-restoration. During withdrawal, channel energy into things that replenish you. Exercise, nature, creative projects, supportive friendships. That replenishment builds resilience. So the next time hurt arises, you can retreat into a reservoir of inner strength instead of a hollow cave of exhaustion. In essence, strategic withdrawal is less about shutting someone out and more about letting yourself into peace, into power, into the quiet confidence that you are no longer an actor in someone else's drama, but the director of your own well-guarded life. After clarity comes choice. You decide whether a response is even warranted. Many offenses lose their sting once the adrenaline recedes. You realize the issue says more about them than you. If a response is necessary, you craft it deliberately, not emotionally. You might set a boundary, propose a solution, or in some cases deliver silence as your final statement, making it clear the conversation ends where respect ends. Strategic withdrawal also functions as a powerful teaching tool. When you disengage instead of sparring, you show the other party that access to your time and emotional bandwidth is conditional upon mutual respect. They quickly learn that if they want your attention, they must elevate their approach. Over time, this reshapes relationship dynamics in your favor without heated confrontations. In that physical distance, practice breath work or quick grounding exercises. Feel your feet on the floor, name the colors around you, count backward from 10. These simple acts calm the amygdala, the brain's fight or flight center, and allow your prefrontal cortex, the rational planner, to come back online. Next comes emotional triage. Privately unpack what just happened without the noise of outside voices. Journal the raw facts, separate them from assumptions, identify which feelings are yours to own and which belong to the other person's insecurities or projections. This solo reflection converts reactive emotion into actionable data. You begin to see patterns. Maybe this person triggers a childhood wound, or perhaps they thrive on chaos and every argument follows the same script. Silence is often misread as surrender, but in reality it can be the ultimate assertion of control. When someone wounds you, they frequently expect a reaction: anger, tears, and outraged rebuttal. That reaction feeds the drama they created and locks you into their emotional arena, where they dictate the rules. Strategic withdrawal reframes silence as an intentional move rather than passive resignation. It's the art of stepping back to regain perspective, protect your nervous system, and choose your next step from a place of clarity rather than chaos. The first layer of strategic withdrawal is immediate disengagement. Think of it as hitting pause on an emotional storm. You're not ignoring the conflict. You're refusing to fuel it in real time. Walk away from the room, close the chat window, turn off your phone if necessary. Lastly, understand this: the more you protect your energy, the more it multiplies. You gain clarity, you become more present, you attract healthier relationships, you stop reacting to every disruption and start responding to life with grounded power. Protecting your energy doesn't mean building a wall. It means building a filter. A filter that allows love, truth, and support to flow in freely, while keeping manipulation, chaos, and guilt outside your border. Because when your energy is protected, your peace is preserved. And when your peace is preserved, your potential becomes limitless. Going for a walk instead of arguing. Saying less in situations where being understood isn't possible. Leaving the room when the energy shifts into something toxic. These small decisions become daily rituals of self-respect. Another key part of protecting your energy is filtering your own thoughts. Sometimes the biggest drain isn't what others do, it's how we speak to ourselves. Harsh self-talk, perfectionism, overthinking, all of it drains your mental battery. Learn to catch those patterns and replace them with kinder, more empowering thoughts. You are the gatekeeper of your mind. Not everything needs to be let in. Just because someone feels entitled to your time doesn't mean you have to give it. Protecting your energy is about ownership, reclaiming your power from places where it has been leaking. It also means becoming more intentional about your surroundings. Energy is contagious. Spend time with negative, bitter, gossip-filled people and watch how your own spirit begins to mirror that energy. But spend time in calm, supportive, uplifting spaces and you begin to expand. Start paying attention to how you feel after interacting with people. Are you energized or drained? Inspired or defeated? Seen or dismissed? Those emotions are your compass. They tell you where your energy is being honored and where it's being exploited. Protecting your energy doesn't require a dramatic lifestyle overhaul. It often begins with simple choices. Learning to say no without guilt. Taking breaks from social media when it overwhelms you. We protect our homes with locks. We protect our phones with passwords. We protect our money with PIN codes and vaults. But how often do we protect our energy, our inner peace, mental clarity, emotional strength with the same level of care? The truth is, energy is the most valuable currency you own. Unlike money, once your energy is drained, it can't be instantly recovered. It takes time, rest, space, and intention to restore. And yet, so many people give their energy away carelessly, to arguments that don't matter, to people who only take, to guilt that doesn't belong to them, to chaos they didn't create. Protecting your energy means first acknowledging that it's yours. You don't owe it to everyone who demands it. You don't have to respond to every text, engage every confrontation, or explain every choice. Just because someone is loud doesn't mean they're important. This practice doesn't guarantee permanent serenity. Triggers may flare, but each time they do, you now have a protocol. Acknowledge the memory, thank it for its warning, apply the lesson, and step back into the present moment. Over time, the memory loses its voltage. It becomes data, not drama. Forgiving without forgetting is radical self-respect. It says, I choose peace over poison, but I refuse to abandon my hard-earned insight. That balanced stance transforms hurt into discernment and frees you to live with an open heart that's guarded by clear wisdom, not by walls of fear. Yet the don't forget part is crucial. Memory is your risk management system. If you silence it, you repeat the same lessons at higher costs. Remembering allows you to recognize red flags earlier, to set sharper boundaries, to refine your intuition. You can smile at someone across the table while still knowing not to hand them the keys to your emotional vault. That's not bitterness, it's informed wisdom. The pathway to forgiving without forgetting starts with separating the event from your identity. What happened is a chapter, not the title of your life. Next, process the emotion fully. Journal, talk to a therapist, create expressive art. Because unprocessed pain masquerades as righteousness. Then, articulate the lesson. From this, I learned to trust actions over words. Or, I learned my worth isn't up for negotiation. Finally, consciously release the desire for revenge. Understanding it chains you to the past. Forgiveness is often marketed like a magic eraser. Wipe the slate clean, pretend nothing happened, move on. That version feels virtuous, but secretly invalidates your experience. Real forgiveness doesn't ask you to delete the memory. It invites you to defang it. Forgetting is amnesia. Forgiving is alchemy. It's the art of taking a memory soaked in pain and extracting wisdom from it, then shelving it in a place where it no longer controls your present. Many people resist forgiveness because they think it's a pardon stamp for the offender. In truth, forgiveness is a liberation order for yourself. As long as resentment squats in your psyche, the person who hurt you remains a landlord collecting rent in the form of your anxiety and anger. Forgiveness serves the eviction notice. It returns your inner space to its rightful owner, your own peace. Audit your daily habits. Which ones nourish resilience and which ones drain it? Breakthrough isn't a single epiphany. It's a series of small, disciplined pivots. It's choosing therapy over bitterness, boundaries over people-pleasing, purpose over pettiness. It's rewriting your internal narrative from I was abandoned to I was redirected. Most importantly, use your rebuilt strength to innovate your life, not just insulate it. Betrayal often births a gift, clarity about what truly matters. Some turn that clarity into new businesses, creative projects, philanthropic missions, or simply a lifestyle aligned with their core values. They become living proof that the worst thing that happened to them became the best thing that happened for them. Because in the end, betrayal is not just an ending. It's a step through it, deliberately. And you step into a version of yourself that the betrayer never imagined you could become. It shifts you from the helpless question, why did this happen to me, to the transformative question, what can this teach for me? The pain becomes data. Every lie teaches you how to recognize truth. Every broken promise sharpens your ability to discern commitment from convenience. Turning betrayal into breakthrough also demands the courage to feel the raw emotions instead of fast-forwarding through them. Rage, grief, humiliation, they're all valid. Give them room, name them, journal them, scream them into a pillow if you must. Emotions that are denied do not disappear. They bury themselves alive and haunt you in other relationships. Processing them fully is like clearing debris before laying a new foundation. Next comes recalibration. When betrayal wipes the slate clean, you decide what gets written back in. Reevaluate your circles. Are you surrounded by people who clap for your growth or secretly pray for your stagnation? Betrayal is the earthquake of trust. Sudden, violent, and capable of reducing the carefully built architecture of a relationship to dust. It leaves you stunned, staring at rubble that used to be shared memories and promises. Most people try to rebuild the exact same structure on the same shaky ground, begging the betrayer for blueprints of reassurance. But the wiser path is to treat betrayal as a forced renovation of the self. The moment someone pulls the rug out from under you, you're offered a once-in-a-lifetime chance to inspect your foundation, your values, your boundaries, your blind spots, and design something stronger. That requires brutal honesty. Ask yourself, what signs did I ignore? Where did I outsource my intuition? Which parts of me were so hungry for validation that I silenced warning bells? Owning those answers is not victim blaming, it is victim empowerment. You don't owe access to your energy just because someone wants it. The boundary itself is the explanation. This doesn't feel right for me. Period. One of the most overlooked boundary mistakes is trying to set them only when you're angry or overwhelmed. But boundaries shouldn't be built in chaos. They should be designed in calm. It's much more effective to set limits when you're centered, when you've thought things through, and when you're clear about what you need, not just what the other person did wrong. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about honoring yourself. If you find people constantly overstepping, it's not always because they're disrespectful. It might be because you've trained them to expect unlimited access. And now your job is to re-educate them with clarity, confidence, and consistency. You don't have to be cruel, you just have to be clear. And sometimes the clearest message is silence, distance, or detachment. But then continue to engage with them after they humiliate you, your boundary becomes an empty sentence. And over time, that gap between what you say and what you tolerate eats away at your self-esteem. Another common mistake is setting boundaries that are vague or indirect. We say things like, I wish you wouldn't talk to me like that. Or, it bothers me when you do this. But we don't clarify the consequence. A true boundary says, this is what I expect, and here's what I will do if that's not respected. Without consequences, boundaries are just suggestions. And people, especially the ones used to crossing lines, don't respect suggestions. They respond to clear lines backed by consistent follow-through. There's also a tendency to over-explain our boundaries, as if we have to justify our right to emotional safety. You don't. You don't need a 5-paragraph essay to back up your no. You don't need to sound polite when protecting your peace. Most people believe that setting a boundary is just about saying no. And while that's part of it, the real issue runs deeper. The number one boundary mistake people make is thinking that a boundary is only a conversation, when in truth, it's a commitment to action. A boundary is not fully set until it is enforced. We often tell people how we expect to be treated, but then, when they cross the line, we hesitate to do anything about it. We make excuses. We second guess ourselves. We allow guilt or fear of rejection to silence our self-respect. This is where emotional damage accumulates. Because every time you state a boundary and then fail to uphold it, you're not just teaching them that your words don't matter, you're teaching yourself the same. Boundaries are about alignment between what you say and what you do. If you tell someone, I won't tolerate being disrespected, it's not about being a doormat or ignoring injustice. It's about responding from wholeness rather than brokenness. Sometimes healing requires firm confrontation. Other times, it's graceful silence. What it never involves is surrendering your inner equilibrium to someone else's chaos. By choosing to heal instead of hurt back, you send the powerful message that your spirit is not for sale, that peace is your protest, and that nothing anyone does can dictate the state of your soul. And talking to trusted friends who won't let you marinate in victimhood. Healing says, I refuse to let this wound become my identity. I'm turning it into wisdom. When you embrace healing over hurting back, you become a disruptor of generational cycles. You stop the relay race of pain that is passed from parent to child, friend to friend, culture to culture. You model emotional alchemy, transforming resentment into resilience, insults into insight, conflict into clarity. People notice that peace, that stability, and many feel inspired to pursue the same path. In this way, your personal healing becomes a public service. Choosing to heal means shifting from a battlefield mentality to a growth mindset. You stop seeing confrontations as wars to win and start seeing them as mirrors reflecting lessons about yourself and the other person. In that mindset, the question becomes, how can I use this hurt to understand my boundaries, my triggers, my unhealed history? The moment you do that, you reclaim authorship of your story. You are no longer reacting to someone else's script. You are drafting your own narrative, where pain is a teacher, not a dictator. Healing is not passive. It's gritty, deliberate work. It involves journaling out raw emotions instead of venting them onto someone else. It involves sitting in therapy sessions, revisiting childhood memories you'd rather ignore. Practicing mindfulness so you can observe the anger without becoming it. Revenge always feels like the most natural response when someone wounds us. Our pulse quickens, imagination races, and the mind drafts witty retorts or schemes that promise instant justice. Yet every time we strike back, we tie ourselves to the very energy that harmed us. It's like drinking salt water to quench thirst. Momentarily satisfying, but leaving us more depleted with each sip. Healing, on the other hand, is the quieter, often underestimated choice that requires inner strength and radical honesty. Healing demands we ask, what part of me is aching, and what does it actually need? Sometimes it needs acknowledgement, sometimes distance, sometimes professional help, or simply permission to grieve what happened. But here's what you need to understand. You are not responsible for their healing, only your own. You are not obligated to stay in emotional environments that leave you anxious, insecure, or emotionally unsafe. Your peace of mind is not something to be negotiated. It's a foundation. When your mind is calm, you see clearly. You think better. You make healthier choices. You attract better energy. That peace, that's your power. And no one should have the right to steal it. Not even the people you love. We spend too much time trying to fix people, thinking our love, patience, or kindness will finally change them. But people don't change because we suffer for them. They change when they're ready to grow. And while they delay that growth, you're left carrying the weight of their words, their moods, and their manipulation. When you allow toxic people to stay in your life unchecked, you slowly lose your own identity. You start adapting to their patterns, compromising your values, shrinking your spirit, just to keep the peace. Ironically, the same peace They keep disturbing. There is a moment in life when you have to realize that not everyone deserves access to you. Some people drain you, manipulate you, or constantly make you question your worth. The most dangerous thing about toxic people is not what they do to you in front of others. It's what they do to your mind when no one is watching. You begin to overthink everything. You walk on eggshells around them. You lose sleep replaying the last conversation, wondering if you were too sensitive or if maybe it really was your fault. That's not peace. That's emotional warfare. And the truth is, you can't heal in the same environment that keeps breaking you. Your mental peace is not a luxury. It's a priority. And if someone is constantly creating chaos in your life, you owe it to yourself to protect your space. Just because someone has history with you doesn't mean they deserve a future. People will call you selfish when you finally say no. But setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's survival.